Is there much extra in here? We're just waiting to be on air before I commence the council meeting, so we'll just be a little bit patient. They might have a little bit of an issue. I declare the council meeting open at 6:04 p.m. Good evening, councillors and staff, ladies and gentlemen. This meeting today is being held on Wajak Noongar Budja, and I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to elders past, present and future. I thank all past and present members of the community that have supported the city to better understand and value Noongar culture within the city of Wanneroo, and I invite you to bow your head in prayer. Lord, we thank you for blessing our city, our community and our council. Guide us all in our decision-making to act fairly, without fear or favour, and with compassion, integrity, wisdom and honesty. May we show true leadership, be inclusive of all, and guide all of the city's people and many families to a prosperous future that all may share. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Please note that the audio-visual proceedings of tonight's meeting will be live broadcast online, with the exception of matters discussed behind closed doors. The broadcast of the proceedings of the meeting can be accessed live and on demand through the City of Wanneroo YouTube channel. Attendances are as per the record, and we have apologies and leave of absence from Councillor Rowe, Councillor Wright, Councillor Civic and Councillor Huntley. So item 3 is public question time. The following general rules apply to public question and statement time. Public questions and statements should only relate to the business of the local government and should not be a personal statement or opinion. Only questions relating to matters affecting the local government will be considered at a council meeting, and only questions that relate to the purpose of the meeting will be considered at a special council meeting. Questions may be taken on notice and responded to after the meeting. Questions may not be directed at specific council members or a city employee. Questions are not to be framed in such a way as to reflect adversely on a particular council member or a city employee. First priority will be given to persons who are asking questions relating to items on the current council meeting agenda, and second priority will be given to public statements. Only public statements regarding items on the council agenda under consideration will be heard. Each person seeking to ask questions or make a statement may address the council for a maximum of 3 minutes each. We have no questions in writing, but we have Damien Clifton, who has a question to council. Damien, would you like to come to the podium and give us your name and the suburb that you live in and ask your questions? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Damien Clifton. I live in Banksia Grove 6031. We've had issues in the last year, so starting in February with the driveway that was built, the footpath that was built on our property was supposed to be on the other side of the road, and when it was built on our side of the road, our houses aren't pushed back far enough to accommodate a decent sized driveway. So that's resulted in the people across the road having 8 metre plus driveways, and our side, excluding the footpath, has left us with 4 metre driveways, which fit less than your standard sedan in them. The only people who fit comfortably in these driveways are Suzuki Swifts, like touching the garage door, you got no room at the back for overhang. For some reason, the footpath that was placed there, compared to the ones around the corner, is very large. So the footpath that we've looked it up in the regulations is a high traffic dual pass footway for high traffic foot area. So it's 2.55 metres wide instead of the standard 1200 to 1600 mil wide. And this increase is on our property side, which is what's reduced all of our driveways. We've had issues with the council the ranger from February to now. Someone anonymous that none of us know, or anyone in the street, like we're quite close. No one's reported one another's vehicles. It's not an issue. Obviously, as I said, the footpath's 2.5 metres wide. So any overhang that's hanging, say, a tow ball or a couple hundred mil of a vehicle is only still leaving you with almost a 2 metre footpath to walk on. So someone's reporting them for who knows the reason. We've tried to have a conversation with the rangers to get easement until we sort the situation out with the size, or modify it and put some paint down or some sort of anything like that. This all started in February. So we had the ranger come out. They told us to move our vehicles to park them on the curb with one wheel on the curb and the rest of the vehicle on the road. The very first time I did this was considered parked legally. For where we are, no cars are allowed in the driveway because, even as I said, standard sedan overhangs the back. We were parked on the footpath. My car got backed into in the first 24 hours and was put into the RAC repair shop for 6 months, so I had no vehicle. I borrowed my father-in-law's vehicle, and I think it was 3 days that was there, that got backed into also. That was also sent to the insurance. So space of 3 months, we had 2 vehicles that were undrivable and sent to the insurance, and we managed to get them back, but it took 5 months to get my personal vehicle back. But yeah, and my other vehicle is a registered Land Cruiser, so it's rather long, but it's not overly long. Overhangs into the footpath, maybe 400 mil when it's parked straight in my driveway. That vehicle has no motor in it right now. I'm rebuilding it currently. The ranger came out while I was working away at midday, so they knew my car would be the only car home because I was working away, and put an abandoned vehicle sticker on it and threatened to tow the vehicle. In my driveway, it's registered. I still pay my rego even though it's got no motor in it. Yeah, so that got them out again, and their solution, they told me, park it so none of the wheels are anywhere near the footpath. So now it's parked on about a 40-degree angle in my driveway, taking up 2 spaces, parked at an angle like this to keep it off of the footpath. And it looks ridiculous, and I can't work on it or anything because it's parked like this and takes 3 people to move it around because it's heavy. Either way, just looking for some sort of easement. We had a talk with the head ranger. Obviously, he said not to name people specifically. I had a talk with the head ranger at some point because that's where it escalated to, because I was getting frustrated at daily notices and seeing the ranger every second day harassing the 3 houses that are affected by this footpath. And yeah, they said that they'd give us some time to sort it out. That's when we started to contact our local representatives. just trying to sort it out. As I said, this all started in February. So we've been trying for a while to get some sort of solution. And we all took his word as for a bit of easement and a bit of pressure off to allow us to sort the situation out. But the rangers continue to come. Like, I've had an interaction with a ranger yesterday coming for my neighbour 2 houses down, reporting their vehicle as overhanging the footpath. And we've been told in the past it has to overhang the footpath for more than 24 hours. That specific neighbour works at a car dealership, drives a different car every single calendar day. So there's no way that car could have been parked over for 24 hours. And that was the vehicle he was there to report. And when I had a chat to him, I said, mate, that car's not even here. It's gone. He's got a different vehicle today. So I don't know if we can find some sort of solution to modify the footpath, reduce the size of the footpath, an easement just to stop having rangers continuously coming out and putting notices on our vehicles and taking photos and just having an overall presence for some reason, or paint lines or some sort of modification. Is there any movement forward that we can have?
Thank you, Damien. I actually feel your pain. Mr CEO would like to respond to that.
Thank you. And for you, Mayor, perhaps I could answer it in two parts. So first part is the Director of Assets, Mr Haminder Singh, has already programmed to go visit the street and examine the width of the footpath. So taking your original question about why is it wider than the neighbouring footpath, so he'll look at that and see what options are available to reduce the width of the footpath. In regards to the compliance action, certainly our rangers do respond to complaints. Debbie Terrelink, the Director of Committee in Place, if you contact her, I'm sure she would be happy to review the situation for you. The way local government is structured as elected members, your ward councillors can't get involved in the infringement aspect, but Debbie Terrelink, the Director of Committee in Place, can look at the circumstances surrounding the infringements and the advice that you've provided tonight and reconsider that for you. But a more permanent resolution will be subject to Mr Singh inspecting the footpath and seeing what options might be available to reduce the width. On the driveway side, house side, that might provide some more flexibility for a greater width to be available to park the vehicle.
Ms Terrelink, do you have anything further to add?
Yes, through you, Mayor. Yes, the City has been receiving complaints about parking over the footpath, which is in contravention of the City's parking local law, and the reason that we have the local law framed as it is in terms of not having people park over the footpath is because it does mean that people with prams or people with disabilities or anyone using the footpath often has to go onto the road. In terms of the complaints, we have had about 19 complaints over the last 3 years, but this year the majority of those complaints have actually been this year. As far as I'm aware, we haven't actually infringed anyone in that particular street. We have issued cautions, but we haven't infringed anybody. There isn't a requirement to review the infringements because there has been no infringements issued. I know that the rangers have tried to speak to the residents concerned and suggest alternatives for them until the Director of Assets has the opportunity to go and have a look at the footpath. So that is about parking on the verge where possible, parking in the street, if it's possible to clear the garage so that the cars can be parked in the garage. Or there's also an option potentially of removing the tow ball tongue to prevent the overhang. But we are working with the residents wherever possible, but hopefully there could be some solution that can be found in terms of the footpath itself so that it actually addresses the particular issue.
Thank you, Ms Terrelink. Mr Singh, would you like to make comment?
Thank you, Mayor. My understanding is the footpath was constructed when the subdivision was built, and that's a continuous footpath for the whole entire length of the street. It is built at the road reserve and property boundary. It's a 2.5 metre dual-use path. That's quite standard practice for paths of this nature. They're normally kept away from the curb line from safety reasons and some other accessibility reasons. That's why the footpath is where it is. Given it's a standard 2.5 metre footpath, the opportunity to reduce it to a lesser width is minimal, but I'm happy to have a look at that.
Thank you, Mr Singh. Mr Clifton, do you want to make any more comments or ask any more questions?
Yes, please. So in regards to the comment with tow balls and removing the tongues of tow balls to get them out the way, with a 4 metre footpath, 4 metre driveway left after this footpath, tow balls are not the issue. It's the last third of a vehicle, except for like a Suzuki Swift. So you're looking at, I have no tow ball in my vehicle, nor do the 3 houses affected have no tow balls in their vehicles, because that's the first thing we did. The actual portion of the vehicle is hanging over because the driveway is so small resulting. And even if it was a tow ball or the resulting push out, the dual carriage nature of that footpath leaves, as I said before, approximately 2 metres of space. So unless you have a 3-person wide pram or, I don't know, a trailer on your wheelchair, there's heaps of room to go through. There's a dual pass at 2 metres is still heaps of room. Sorry. In regards to saying that a 2.5 metre footpath is a standardised footpath, the one section of Beautiful Road, right at the very beginning, is our section, the first 4 houses. That footpath is 2.5 metres wide. You continue across the road where the footpath continues, it is back down to an actual standard size of 1.6 metres wide. The 2.5 is not a standardised size for footpaths. It's considered a high traffic dual pass footpath when you look up the codes. That's why I've looked into it a lot to see if it was even allowed to be 2.5 metres wide. There's no reason for that area just in front of our 4 houses to be a high traffic foot area when the roads going up towards bus stops and down, continuing down the street, are back down to the reduced original size. And the houses where they're down to the reduced original size have inlaid blocks, like their houses are pushed further back and the blocks are larger to allow to still have about a 6 metre driveway. So it just doesn't make sense for the size of the driveway, the size of the footpath. I understand there's been no infringements laid because we've managed to intervene each time that we've had warnings or stuff put on the vehicles or face-to-face interactions with the ranger. So there's no infringement to, no infringement to fight, essentially. But why does it have to get to the point where we are fighting to not be fined monetarily before we can resolve the issue?
Thank you, Mr Clifton. Mr Singh is going to come and he's going to visualise the site and work with you, and we will do the best to work with you to improve your circumstances and rectify to everybody's benefit. I'm sure Mr Singh will be able to help you. Thank you. Oh, you have one more question? One more question.
Sorry, I did forget one thing. The only reason that I come in as well, especially to try and expedite the situation, is we're going on a holiday in October, and the last thing I want is a person house sitting to me to park straight in my driveway and cop a fine while I'm away. Same thing as well, I work away. The vehicle in question, the Land Cruiser, I'm going to be parking straight as of this weekend. I plan on doing the final repairs to it and making it a drivable vehicle, and I can't park it diagonally every day, so I'm just trying to look for a path where I don't have to try and fight with the ranger from work or holiday or anything like that.
Okay, I'm sure Ms Terralink will take note of that. Thank you. Ms Terralink?
Yes, through you, Mayor. We will do our best. As I indicated, we are receiving complaints about vehicles parking across the footpath, but we will certainly do our best.
For you, Mayor, I think Mr Singh will arrange to try to have one of his staff meet you on site next week so that we can have a look at it with you before you go on leave.
Councillor Miles, you wanted to ask a question?
Yeah, just of Mr Clifton, if you don't mind, please, Mayor. When you purchased your lot, you spoke in part of your question was that you were saying on the opposite side of the road, the lots look longer or bigger. When you purchased your lot, did it indicate that you were supposed to have a footpath at that point, or was it on the other side, or so you wasn't aware of it?
Mr Clifton, this is just one question, then we'll have to go on with our council meeting, but you can respond to that.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, so we have our original documentation from LWP, which was the land agent, provided on the block sizes across the road. The block sizes are larger, and they had allocated in the original documentation that we signed when we started building the house, when it was all just dirt, like before they built footpaths or anything. The footpath was supposed to be on that side, as the blocks were larger, like in depth, their same frontage, larger in depth, and the houses were set back further. So this is what I was saying at the very beginning, that footpath resulted in us having a 4 metre driveway. But even if it was on the other side as a dual pass footpath, their driveways now are 8 metres. So even with the 2 metres chopped off it, they'd still end up with a 6 metre reasonable driveway, same as the people across the road who have the 1.6 metre footpath and a 6 metre driveway.
Thank you, Mr Clifton. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you for hearing me out.
My pleasure. So now we have questions from Mr Hugh Newen. Mr Hugh Newen, would you like to come up and give us your name and the suburb in which you live? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hugh Newen. I'm from Lansdowne, 6065. Thank you for the opportunity to ask some questions on behalf of a number of residents in our community. I'll start off with some general questions, if I may. Firstly,
Mr Newen, I just want to clarify that they're related to the agenda that we have this evening.
Madam Mayor, my understanding is that questions during a council meeting can relate to any business of council or the city.
That is correct. Thank you.
Thank you. My first question to the city is, would the city agree that a petition which has more than 1,000 signatures from ratepayers is a substantial and significant petition?
Mr CEO.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. That would be up to council to decide based on the contents of the specific petition as presented at the time.
And
Mr Newen, do you have another question?
I have a number of questions. As I said, Madam Mayor, from the beginning, I have quite a number of questions, if I may. Would the city agree that such a petition is not to be ignored or taken lightly?
That is a very similar question. Mr CEO, would you like to respond to that?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Council will consider all petitions on their merit and make a decision based on the content of the petition and the advice from the officers at the time.
Mr Hugh Newen, your next question, please.
Would the city agree that a council meeting whereby over 200 residents attend to voice their opposition on a matter is substantial and significant turnout and ought to be taken seriously?
Mr CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council will consider many things in making a decision. One might be a petition, one might be feedback from an engagement strategy, one would be advice from officers, advice from legislation, reference to strategic community plans, and a plethora of other information, and they would then make their decision based on all information considered at the time.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Your fourth question, Mr Newen.
So my next question is more specific, and it relates to the old Queen's Rocks Caravan Park site and the clamping development proposal for that site. So given that there was a petition of over 1,500 signatures and attendance at a council meeting of over 200 residents opposing the development, would the city agree that it was totally unacceptable for the city to ignore the wishes and views of our community in relation to this matter?
Mr CEO.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll answer the question based on the context provided by Mr Newen in seeking and advice on what the city, as opposed to council. In that instance, the city held two special council meetings from my recollection, provided enormous opportunity for the community to participate in structured and unstructured community engagements. Extensive public question time was provided by the Mayor to ensure the community had every opportunity to provide their information and opinion on the proposal. That was then supported by a very detailed governance framework, project framework, a working group comprising of elected members to oversee the process of the reports being presented to council. And then with all information considered equally and on its merits, council made an informed decision.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Mr Newen, do you have a fifth question?
I do, Madam Mayor. I have a number of other questions. Mr CEO, just for clarity, when I say the city, I'm actually referring to the council. So if you'd like me to refer to the council, I will refer to the council for my other questions. My next question is, with 14 interest rates hikes by the RBA, by the Reserve Bank of Australia since December 2021, and inflation peaking at near 7% in recent times, there is no doubt that many in our community are experiencing a cost of living crisis, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. The increase, with over $400 million in reserve in the city's bank, my question is, how is it acceptable for the city to keep on increasing rates on the residents year after year?
Mr CEO.
And thank you, and through you, Mayor. Council provides comprehensive information to the community as part of the budget adoption, and most of the answers to those questions can be considered in reading the officer's report, which was used for Council to decide on this forthcoming budget that has been adopted.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Mr Dewan, you have another question, number 6?
I do, Madam Mayor. My next question is that the community understands the city will be spending approximately $10,000 of ratepayers' money to conduct a business case study in relation to a hospice within the city. My question is, where does it say in the Local Government Act or anywhere else that a hospice is part of the local government remit?
Mr CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would not imagine the Act would be that specific to detail specific examples of activities that would or wouldn't be permitted under the Act. Council, in making that decision, would need to be satisfied that it was in the good governance of the district to expend those monies on that purpose.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Mr Newen, you have had 5 minutes and 47 seconds of question time.
Last question, please,
The
Madam
limit
Mayor.
is 5 minutes of question time. That is what the standing orders say. So you've had your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is anyone else in the room got questions for this evening? I don't think we've got anyone else in the community. So we move right on to item 4, confirmation of minutes. And I intend to move these en bloc. So we've got SOCO 2/9/23, minutes of special council meeting held on the 14th of August. OCO 1/9/23, minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 15th of August. And OCO 3/09/23, minutes of the special council meeting held on the 29th of August. Do I have a mover? Mover Deputy Mayor Treby, seconder Councillor Berry. Do I have any speakers against the minutes? If I have no speakers against the minutes, please cast your vote, councillors. And everyone that's here has voted unanimously to support the minutes. Item 5, announcements by the Mayor without notice. Well, we've got a few things on the announcement tonight, and one of them, I got a letter from the Honourable John Carey, MLA, thanking the City of Wanneroo for their commitment to ensuring the well-being of the local Wanneroo community. The Minister is looking forward to continuing work with all local governments in the homelessness space. The Minister's priority and that of the State Government is to see as many Western Australians as possible in safe, secure and sustainable homes. The State Government has been committed to assisting our state's most vulnerable and is investing a record $2.6 billion into housing and homelessness over the next 4 years. The State Government is investing in the Homelessness Engagement Assessment Response Team, the HEART team, which provides assertive outreach to build relationships with rough sleepers and connect them with support and accommodation they need. And as we are aware, the State Government has recently expanded to the HEART into the Northern Corridor, which includes the City of Wanneroo and the City of Joondalup. And so we've just been recommended by the Minister, and I just wanted to share that letter from the Minister. I think that's important, that we get positive outcomes from our advocacy strategies and part of our wellness advocacy program for our community. The other item I have is Denmark Women's Team. The City recently hosted Denmark Women's Team at Kingsway Regional Open Space. The Danish team chose the City's facilities as their team-based camp for training due to the quality of the playing service, excellent facilities and the wider Kingsway Regional Open Space that provided them with the required privacy and surrounds to prepare for the tournament. It was an incredibly exciting opportunity for the City for a facility to play a role in the biggest women's sporting event on the planet. Our community facilities and parks and conservation and management teams work closely with Olympic Kingsway and FIFA to prepare the Olympic facility for Denmark's arrival. This preparation commenced months before the tournament to ensure that both the facility and the playing surface met the strict requirements of FIFA. The Danish team arrived in July 2023 and Olympic Kingsway rescheduled their games away from the home ground to allow the required pitch preparation, and that was pivotal. FIFA provided feedback that the turf quality prepared at Olympic Kingsway was equal to that of any other venue in Australia. In recognition of the hard work by the city staff, the Danish team presented 2 shirts signed by the players to the community facilities and park and conservation management teams. That will be proudly displayed in the Civic Centre and at Ashby Operations Centre in appreciation of all the work of everyone involved. Tonight, we have Rowan Clem, the Manager of Community Facilities, Peter Hull, Community Facilities Planning, Grant Chettelberg, the Manager of Parks and Conservation, and Manager Chris Langsford, Coordinator of Parks Technical. And they're coming down to accept the shirts on behalf of their teams at the City of Wanneroo. Oh, thank you. Here we go. Congratulations, mate. Oh my God. That's a good way to start. You did. Awesome. Here we go. You can take yours. There we go. And there is more. I'm pleased to advise that on the 24th of August this year, the City was recognised at the Australian Institute of Project Management's WA Chapter Annual Presentation Awards. The Coastal Dual Use Path Burns Beach to Mindarie project, delivered jointly by the cities of Wanneroo and Joondalup, was declared Project of the Year and winner in the Construction Engineering category. The judges acknowledged the collaborative effort involving the City of Joondalup, City of Wanneroo, the Western Australian Planning Commission and Tamala Park Regional Council. This project involved creating a dual-use path spanning Burns Beach in the City of Joondalup to Mindarie in the City of Wanneroo, negotiating challenging terrains, including a Bush Forever site and a registered Aboriginal heritage site. The project showcased astute environmental and heritage management. The delivery of the Burns Beach to Mindarie dual-use path underscores collaborative excellence, encapsulating the very essence of collaborative project management. And I now invite our Director of Assets, Mr. Harminder Singh, to come forward and receive this award. Don't break it. Now to a bit of an emotional part of the meeting. Tonight is the last ordinary council meeting attended by our Director of Community and Place, Debbie Terrelink, and our wonderful CEO, Daniel Sims. Debbie Terrelink has been with the City since 2017, leading the Community Place Directorate. Whilst here, she has been instrumental in helping to deliver many projects for our community, including the progression for the Dordak Keepak Library, an innovation hub, and the Alkimos Aquatic and Recreation Centre projects. Guiding the delivery of sporting infrastructure at Splendid Park and Western Australia's first off-road criterion cycling track at there as well. Securing funding from the state government for floodlighting upgrades at Kingsway Regional Sporting Complex, which will benefit the local clubs for years to come, and enabled the City to host the Denmark women's team for the FIFA Women's World Cup. Debbie has guided the City in preparing our place management strategy, which has improved community activation and involvement within our city. And that is a small sample of the projects she has been a vital part of for our community. We wish Debbie the very best in her new role as CEO of the Shire of Northam and know she will be an excellent CEO for the community there. Thank you, Debbie, for all that you've done. I would now like to honour and give thanks for all the work and sacrifice our CEO Daniel Sims and his family, including his wonderful wife Debbie, have given for our community here at the City of Wanneroo. Mr Sims has dedicated an incredible 21 years of service to the City of Wanneroo. Throughout his 2 decades leading the city, his dedication, vision and drive has created a lasting legacy that will benefit our residents for years to come. While the city's population has grown from 60,000 to over 220,000 during his time at the helm, his strong leadership ensured we rose to meet this challenge. He has driven business investment to help create a strong local economy, advocated for major infrastructure projects to support our growing community, and nurtured an inclusive and diverse city with incredible lifestyle opportunities for our residents. With his guidance, Council successfully advocated for over $1 billion of state and federal government investment, which is delivering freeway extensions, the railway to Yanship and many other vital projects for the community to enjoy in the years to come. Wanneroo would not be the city it is today without his invaluable contributions. It was with great sadness I received his resignation on the 29th of March this year, but with thankfulness for all he has done here at Wanneroo. Myself and Council wish him and his family the very best in the future, and whilst Wanneroo will continue to prosper with his legacy, I am sure he will create a new legacy for Cockburn as well. Thank you, Daniel.
Madam Mayor, if I may, is there an opportunity to say a couple of words on behalf of both Daniel and Debbie?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. If I could just very, very briefly, and I'm in a very fortunate position because I'm the longest serving elected member and I've been here so long this building wasn't even in place. And I can say with some degree of absolute confidence that Debbie Terrelink is by far and away the most professional and the very best director of community in place that this city, the new city of Wanneroo, has ever had. I think Debbie now is my, fifth director of community in place, and frankly, I think Debbie leaves her predecessors well and truly in the shade. And one of my most favourite memories is meeting Debbie on site at a location of a library and sharing with her my vision for the library, its location and what it could mean. And it's Debbie's professionalism and her leadership and work with both internal and external stakeholders that will see that vision come to fruition. So Debbie, I think you're fantastic, the best we've ever had. And our loss is Northam's gain. So thank you. Daniel, I did say I think don't let the door hit you on the way out. But in all honesty, I have. It was one of my greatest pleasures to be able to be part of a group that poached you back from Gosnells. And I know that was a particular challenge at the time because you were only a CEO there for 12 months. And I have been bragging to all in the industry that I know that we have still, as we speak tonight, the best CEO within the industry, certainly within Western Australia and would be one of the leading CEOs nationally. And I can say that without much equivocation because your work, not just within the district of Wanneroo, but broadly at a state level, is recognised. And can I also say with some knowledge and understanding, your work with the National Growth Areas Alliance and in a leadership role has provided enormous benefit for growth councils all over Australia and enormous value to the Western Australian context. And that leadership is now sadly going to Coburn. It will be an enormous game for them, and I wish them all the best. They're going to have to spend some time to try and break you in. But I'm sure that will be just an interesting journey. Dan, I couldn't leave you in this last meeting as CEO without saying those words because I've deeply appreciated your friendship, your leadership, your guidance. Dan's one of those unique CEOs who will never come to you with a problem and let you fix it. He will always come with a range of concerns and issues, and he will always then come with a range of well-considered options to remedy those issues. And that is quite rare in CEOs. And Dan, you have been, you are, and you will be, well into the future, the preeminent CEO within local government in this state. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Treby. Okay, well, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 6, questions from council members. Do we have any questions from the council members? If there are no questions from council members, I have no petitions on item 7. Are there any petitions? Okay, so there are no petitions. Update on petitions. The request for council and main roads to conduct traffic survey for either speed limit reduction or installation of traffic lights at the intersection of Jacaranda Drive in Wanneroo Road, Wanneroo, and that update is on the agenda. Declarations of interest by council members, including the nature and extent of which the interests are to be made at the commencement of the item to which the interest relates, and declarations of interest forms are to be completed and handed to the Chief Executive Officer. I understand that some people might want to move the confidential items forward to the beginning of the agenda. Do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor Treby, do I have a seconder to move the confidential? Councillor Herridge, could we just go to the vote?
Madam Mayor, if I could also suggest that we bring forward CEO 040923, which is the matter of the CEO recruitment process certification as well, to the front of the agenda.
Okay, so we're looking at CRO 20923 and CEO 40923 being forward to the agenda. So that's moved by Deputy Mayor Treby, seconded by Councillor Herridge. Could we please vote on that, please, now? Okay, that is passed 8-1, and Councillor Nguyen was the only councillor that voted against that. So we will go behind closed doors now for those 2 items. Thank you. votes to go behind closed doors for confidential, and that is
Still waiting on 4 people to vote.
yeah. So Councillor Smith and Councillor Nguyen hasn't voted yet. Okay, so we have 8 supporting it and 1 councillor against, which is Councillor Nguyen. So I declare the doors closed. And would you like to declare your impartiality, please?
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're at CEO 4923, Chief Executive Officer Recruitment Process Certification, which I will move and Deputy Mayor Treby will second. This is a very exciting time for the City of Wanneroo. We have finally completed, this is the final tying up of the ends for the recruitment of our new CEO, which will replace our beloved CEO, Mr Sim. Mr Parker has signed the contract and he, according to Council's decision, will be starting at the City of Wanneroo on the 4th of December. We are all excited at his acceptance of the position and looking forward to working with him. He is an excellent candidate and he's got big shoes to fill, but I'm sure that he is more than capable of filling those shoes. Deputy Mayor Treby, would you like to speak to this item?
I should start by saying what I said before, but earlier on. Look, there's part of the, well, it's an important part of the process because it's included now with the model standards for CEO recruitment, performance and termination. And an extremely important part of that process is the process certification. I think it's, Council, it's probably fair to say, I think, and I'm pretty sure I'm right with this, we would be the first council that has appointed a probity auditor within this process within the state. And actually, I think that sets a particularly good benchmark standard. The process was very robust, rigorously met by making sure that we very much met all of our obligations. The report reflects that. We got and achieved the best outcome that we could possibly have achieved. And I think the certification is fairly straightforward. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Treby. I just want to make a comment. I will read out the confidential items recommendations after we voted on this, okay? Do I have any speakers against this item? If I have no speakers against this item, please, councillors, cast your vote. And that is, we have 8 for and 1 against, and the councillor against is Councillor Van Nguyen. As far as item CEO 1, I'll just go back to it, CEO 10923, the recommendation that was supported by Council. CR01, thank you. CR 10923, the recommendation that Council supports in principle the conditional offer presented by Jake Nicholas Pritchard to purchase lot 602 87 Moore Park Avenue, Yanchep for the amount outlined in the administration report, authorises the publication of a local public notice of the intention to dispose of lot 602 87 Moore Park Avenue, Yanchep pursuant to the offer described in item 1 above in accordance with section 3.58 of the Local Government Act 1995 WA, and B, the Chief Executive Officer or a nominee of the Chief Executive Officer to consider and in brackets and reject if applicable any public submissions with regard to item 2A. Authorises the Chief Executive Officer or a nominee of the Chief Executive Officer to A, negotiate the commercial terms of sale contract at an amount not less than the sale price outlined in the administration report and incorporating special conditions. B, execute all documentation. C, vary the settlement date and date of satisfaction of any special conditions. And D, comply with all applicable legislation as required to effect item 1 above. 4, authorises the Mayor and the Chief Executive Officer to affix the common seal of the City of Wanneroo to transfer the land documentation for the sale of Lot 202, 87 Moore Park Avenue, Yanchep, in accordance with the City of Wanneroo's execution of documents policy. And 5, notes any other associated documentation relating to the sale of Lot 602, 87 Moore Park Avenue, Yanchep, is to be executed in accordance with the City of Wanneroo's execution of documents policy. And the other item CR020923, the Chief Executive Officer Annual Performance Review 2022-23. The recommendation that Council endorsed, they endorsed by absolute majority the report prepared by Mrs Helen Hardcastle for the CEO's 2022-23 performance review set out at attachment 2 and accepts the recommendations within, and A, confirms that the CEO has again demonstrated his performance requirements, having achieved the agreed performance indicators. Notes that the overall performance feedback received demonstrates that he has maintained his consistent high performance during the 2022-23 year. Notes that there were no material corporate issues identified that warranted further examination. D, notes that the CEO has met and exceeded the agreed 2022-23 key performance indicators, and notes that Council has appointed Mrs Helen Hardcastle, local government consultant, to facilitate and undertake the CEO performance review for the 2022-23 period. Authorises the Mayor to execute any required legal documentation to give effect to the recommendations in the report prepared by Mrs Helen Hardcastle for the CEO's 2022-23 performance review set out as an attachment. And that was supported 8-1, and there was only one councillor that didn't support that, and that was Mr Vin Nguyen. Thank you. And we will go back to the agenda proper. And we go to Planning and Sustainability, PS 010923, preparation of amendment number 206 to District Planning Scheme number 2, part normalisation of the East Wanneroo Cell 4 Hocking and Pearsall Structure Plan number 6 area, and revocation of Hocking Neighbourhood Centre agreed local structure plan number 42. Do I have a mover, Councillor Miles, and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Treby. Councillor Miles, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The report itemises it quite well. I asked my questions last week, which was fulfilled by administration. It is part of, as it says in the actual heading, normalisation. But I guess for the layman, it's about us removing some red tape and getting some of these structure plans off the agenda. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Deputy Mayor Treby, do you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Certainly, the normalisation of the structure plan in East Wanneroo Cell 4 is part of normal process, and I think, as Councillor Miles rightly pointed out, it actually has the effect of removing some, in inverted commas, red tape. And provides harmonisation and normalisation for those areas into the future from this point forward. And I think the report is very thorough and well considered.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Treby. Do I have any speakers against this item? If I have no speakers against this item, please, councillors, cast your vote. And that is passed unanimously. We now go to item PSO 20923, preparation of amendment number 210 to District Planning Scheme number 2, revocation of Clarkson, in brackets lot 16 Connolly Drive, agreed structure plan number 33. Do I have a mover and seconder for this item? Moved. Councillor Parker, seconded. Councillor Smith. Councillor Parker, would you like to speak to this item?
Very briefly, Matt. Excellent report, and thank you. And very happy to support the recommendation. Thank you for the really comprehensive report. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Smith, would you like to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Do I have any speakers against this item? If I have no speakers against this item, councillors, please cast your vote. And that is passed unanimously. We now go to assets. We go to ASO 10923, and there is a confidential attachment to this. So if any discussion relates to the confidential attachment, we will have to go behind closed doors. It's about the tender 23083 Yanship Lagoon kiosk upgrade. Do I have a mover for this? Councillor Coetzee, do I have a seconder? Councillor Miles. Councillor Coetzee, do you wish to speak to this item?
Yes, thank you. The community is very happy with the
upgrade of the Orion Cafe that's happening, and it's so much needed there as well. And in meantime, there will be a food truck, so we can still have our coffees in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coetzee. Councillor Miles, would you like to speak to this item?
Yeah, just briefly, I think Councillor Coetzee has indicated the benefits. Just to say that this is probably one of those last projects of the CEO and the director, of them making this happen in a very fast, expedient timeframe for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Do I have any speakers against this item? If I have no speakers against this item, councillors, please cast your vote. And that is passed unanimously. Okay, item ASO 20923, tender 23072, provision of streetscapes maintenance south. Once again, there are confidential attachments for this, and if there are any questions about that, we'll have to go behind closed doors. Deputy Mayor Treby will move it. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Herridge. Deputy Mayor Treby, would you like to speak to this?
Very pleased with the tender, and I think the pricing and the process is meets the typical standard that the high standards that we expect in tender evaluation. I do have one question, however, and I've gone through the confidential attachment and even in the report. Can I get, through you, Madam Mayor, the Director, Director Singh, to give me an indication as to exactly what area South covers?
Mr Singh.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the area for all the streetscapes south of Ocean Reef Road, and some of the suburbs in that southern area, they're part of another contract, which is Darch Medley Land Sale. They're a separate contract.
Thank you, Mr Singh.
Thank you. That's what I was hoping, because there's I think having driven around the suburbs in the South Ward, there is certainly some work for them to do at this point in time. But I'm very happy with the report and particularly pleased with the outcome.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Treby. Councillor Herridge, would you like to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Are there any speakers against this item? If there are no speakers against this item, councillors, please cast your vote. And that is passed unanimously. We now go to Community in Place, CPO 10923, Department of Local Government, Sport and Cultural Industries 2024-25 funding round. Do I have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Berry and Councillor Coetzee can second it. Councillor Berry, would you like to speak to this item?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. I think it's exceptionally brilliant that we're actually getting additional funding, and I'm very pleased that the budget's been adjusted to reflect such, and that the new sports and floodlighting will be going in various places, and then we'll be getting an upgrade of changing rooms in Girraween. I think it's important we look after the north, south and the whole of the district, so I'm quite happy to endorse this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Berry. Councillor Coetzee, would you like to speak to this item?
Yes, please. The exponential growth in the north area has rendered, and Heath Park is bustling with bull sports and community engagement. The Heath Park has 2 playing fields with an eastern field with 2 rugby pitches with floodlighting, and the western field currently being constructed. The western field is proposed to have 2 football soccer pitches with Alkimos Football Club, the intended primary user, and there will be a demand for floodlights on the western side. Alkimos Aquatic Recreational Centre is a much-needed facility for the residents of the Northern Growth Corridor. Its services will greatly enhance the health and well-being of the community while simultaneously reducing travel time, road use and carbon emissions. This state-of-art centre is a significant step towards promoting a healthier and more sustainable lifestyle in the regions, for the region's residents. Montrose Park is prominently a conservation site with a tennis facility located on the north side. It was built in 1981 and not fit for purpose anymore. Change rooms have been communal showers with no privacy and no hot water. The kiosk and the storage areas have been aging, have aging fixtures and fittings. The facility is in dire need of an upgrade. Thank you for putting these 3 areas forward for funding. They do need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coetzee. Do I have any speakers against this item? Councillor Miles has a question.
Yeah, just a quick question, thank you. And it was a follow-up from Councillor Rose from last week when the question was asked about whether there was hot water available in the building. I mean, I remember the building when I went to school there, but is there hot water in that building now or not?
Mr Singh.
He knows all our assets.
Oh, Ms Terrelink.
Through you, Mayor, no, I don't believe that there is hot water in Montrose Park.
Thank you, Ms
Coverings.
Terrelink. Do you have any more questions, Councillor Miles?
Well, I guess the question is, following on from that, are we going to put some hot water in there, bearing in mind that that would be a health issue, and this is only a grant application, which we may not actually get?
Ms Terrelink.
Through you, Mayor, yes, the intention of the project is to include hot water.
And Mr CEO, would you like to speak to Councillor Miles's question?
I just wholeheartedly support Ms Terrelink's comment that we will put hot water in, or at least provide some thermoses.
On that note, councillors, if there's no speakers against, could we please cast our vote? And that was passed unanimously. So we move on to place activation, CPO 20923, disbandment of the East Wanneroo Community Reference Group. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Miles, seconder. Councillor Smith. Councillor Miles, would you like to speak to this?
Not really particularly. I think the report outlines that the East Wanneroo Reference Group met a few times over the last last year. From when it was set up, it was quite good. The administration through planning, the Director of Planning was able to highlight some of the challenges of East Wanneroo, and I think the residents that were on that reference group were very happy to hear some of those concerns that we had on behalf of them and are taking those up further. But other than that, I think it has done its job well.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Councillor Smith, would you like to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Do I have any speakers against it? If there are no speakers against it, please, councillors, cast your vote. And that was passed unanimously. Corporate strategy and performance, I want to move the next 2 items on block. CSO 10923, financial activity statement for the period ended the 31st of July, and CSO 20923, warrant of payments for the period to the 31st of July. Do I have a mover and seconder for these 2 items? Deputy Mayor Treby, Councillor Berry. Deputy Mayor Treby, would you like to speak to this?
No, Madam Mayor, they're very straightforward.
Councillor Berry, would you like to speak to this item?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I've just got a follow-up question from a question I asked last week, and that relates to the warrant of payments. It relates to item 19580 and 19995, found on page 149 and 172. Administration has provided an answer to say, for clarification, training is provided to the animal care officers who qualified vet nurses and are required to implant microchips into dogs and cats prior to them being released from the animal care centre. My question is, are the animal care officers and qualified vets the same as rangers? Because it says in our warrant of payments, the training was provided to rangers, not care officers and qualified vets.
Ms Terrelink.
Through you, Mayor, it is animal care officers rather than the rangers, so that's just an error in terms of classifying it as rangers when they're actually the animal care officers.
Thank you for the clarification. No further questions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Berry. Do we have any speakers against these 2 items? If we have no speakers against these 2 items, please, councillors, cast your vote. And that was passed unanimously. We now go to Property Services, item CSO 30923, the proposed road reserve closure, portions of Celeste Street, Eglinton. Do I have a mover and seconder for this item? Moved Councillor Coetzee, seconded Councillor Parker. Councillor Coetzee, do you want to speak to this item?
There's not really much to say, ma'am. Thank you.
Councillor Parker.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Any speakers against, councillors? If there are no speakers against, councillors, cast your vote. Passed unanimously. We now go to CSO 40923, the proposed excision and dedication part of lot 9943, that is 310 Flynn Drive, Neerabup, as road reserve. Do we have a mover for this item? Councillor Miles. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Berry. Councillor Miles, do you want to speak to this item? Councillor Berry, do you wish to speak to this item?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Do I have any speakers against this item? If I have no speakers against this item, councillors, please cast your vote. And pass unanimously. We go to the Chief Executive Office, item Advocacy and Economic Development, CEO 1923, Advocacy Plan 2023 to 2032. Do I have a mover for this item? Deputy Mayor Treby, a seconder? Councillor Herridge. Deputy Mayor Treby, do you want to speak to this item?
Very, very briefly. I'd have to say I was reminded by the CEO that the city was actually one of the first, if not the first, local government to develop an economic development division or section, branch within the organisation. And developing an advocacy plan provides an ideal and exciting opportunity when we are advocating for critical pieces of infrastructure throughout the city of Wanneroo. I'd like to pay particular thanks to Mr. Steve Marmion and his team. The advocacy plan has, by its success, proven its very worth because we have received an enormous amount of state and federal funding, and having a plan when you're knocking on doors, particularly using our leverage with the National Growth Areas Alliance nationally, when we're having those discussions in Canberra with the federal government, federal ministers, and even shadows at the time, shadow ministers, and also with the GAP group with respect to speaking to state government departments, ministers, and indeed shadow ministers. It's a fantastic thing that we have put together. It's very, very professionally done, and its success really does hail the very value of having the advocacy plan. I am particularly pleased that there has been an inclusion of two major projects in the advocacy plan, one being the Yanchep Tertiary Hospital and Community Services Hub, and the other one close to both Councillor Rose and my heart is the Girraween Hub and Precinct. They are critical projects for not only the future growth of the city to the north of the city, but also recognising the emergence of needs and community infrastructure needs in the well-established southern suburbs of the city. Both of those, the inclusion of those projects stands them in good stead for us to advocate both at state and federal levels. So again, Mr Marmion, thank you very much. If you could extend that through to your team as well, I think it's very well deserved. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Treby. Councillor Herridge, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to speak, but Councillor Treby has taken absolutely every word I was going to say. So thank you.
Do I have any speakers against this item? Councillor Berry.
It's not a speaker against. I'd just like to ask a question. How long does administration believe it will take to get a hospital in Yanchep?
Mr Marmion.
Thank you for the question through you, Mayor. That's a very good question. I think the sooner we start asking for it, the sooner we'll get it. That's the history with other advocacy projects. So I think we really just need to get our ducks in a row, so to speak, and start asking for it as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr Marmion. Anyone wants to... do you have another question, do you,
It's
Councillor?
not another question, it's just a follow-up. To me, it would seem very sensible that we include the hospice within the Young Chep Tertiary Hospital at the same time and do advocacy without incurring the costs. So it's just basically to say that obviously there is a...
Councillor Berry, that is a statement, it's not a question, and we are dealing with the current economic advocacy plan in front of us at the moment. It's not a place to make statements, it is questions about the item, and if you don't have a question to ask, we will go ask if there are any speakers against. Councillor Nguyen, do you want to speak against this item?
Just a typo on page 213, just the word medium on the second table, on the risk rating.
Mr Marmion? Page 213. Okay, do I have any speakers against this item? If there are no speakers against this item, please cast your vote. And that is passed unanimously. We now go to item CE020923, Enterprise Funding Policy Review. Do I have a mover and seconder on this item? Move Councillor Miles, second Deputy Mayor Treby. Councillor Miles, do you want to speak to this item?
Yeah, just briefly, thank you, Mayor. I think the enterprise funding policy is vital, and I'm very happy that we as a council are continuing these sort of assistance grants, I guess you can put them. I know only too well how they do benefit small business on the ground, and hopefully going forward we can expand on them to help business also maybe get their I think, what do they call it, the Australian standards tick and stuff like that, because I do know that the larger businesses, the miners specifically, will not deal with anybody unless they have their Australian standards. So I think that should be a good way forward for our economic team to have a look at how to fund or help fund that sort of assistance for small businesses that are in and around our district going forward. But other than that, Mayor, I'm very happy with the review.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Deputy Mayor Treby would like to speak to this item.
Just very briefly, I'll probably touch on one of the other matters in the next item as well. But it's probably fair to say that, councillors, when on face value, if there's a report in front of us that does look at economic investment, it's not, and again, you don't look at it as just that money going out the door and hoping that businesses will survive. The principle behind it is that somewhere in the order is a ratio of either 6:1 or 9:1 is the value that's generated through this investment with that business generating back into the local economy. That's critical because this investment helps local businesses and enterprises grow. And when they grow, they're employing local people. They're bringing local money into the economy. So the investment in these cases is critically important. So whilst it does seem that there is money going out by way of grants, there's also the in-kind support that's provided by our economic investment and advocacy team as well, which is also a critical part. So whilst the investment is there and on face value, the return to our economy on a ratio basis for every dollar that's invested is somewhere between 6:1 and 9:1. So it's a great funding policy, and I think it provides a solid basis for the future economic growth of the city.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Treby. Do I have any speakers against this item? If I have no speakers against this item, councillors, please cast your vote. And that's passed unanimously. We now go to CEO 30923, sponsorship agreement with Core Innovation Hub to activate the Automation and Robotics Precinct. I will be moving that and Deputy Mayor Treby seconding that. For me, this is fantastic to have this sponsorship agreement with Core Innovation Hub to facilitate the activation of the Australian Automation and Robotics Precinct in Neerabup. We are already getting automation and robotics companies coming up there and looking at as safe hands, a good place, particularly with our infrastructure and our road network dealing with that. So I asked my fellow councillors to support this. Deputy Mayor Treby would like to speak to this item.
And again, thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, just building on the comments I was making earlier on, this is a particularly important project. It's a cornerstone of the Neerabup industrial area. We're extremely fortunate to have the Australian Automation and Robotics Precinct being developed at this location. It's a project of certainly Western Australian significance, but you would also argue that it will have a presence both nationally and internationally. We suspect that it's likely to attract international attention. I think the only main competitor when we were having these discussions was effectively in Canada. So we will have something which will be leading edge within the city of Wanneroo. And again, investing in this, this economic ratio benefit is much more likely to be $9 return for every $1 of investment, and it will compound. So this is going to be a fantastic project. It will be a core employer within the northern suburbs of the city of Wanneroo, and a major competitor in the automation and robotics industry across this state and nationally, because it does and will attract tier 1 miners, and they have international presence. This cannot be understated. This is a fantastic agreement, and again, Mr. Marmion, congratulations, another feather in your cap. And when the Australian Knighthoods come back, I think you'll possibly get a recommendation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Treby. Do I have any speakers against this? Councillor Nguyen.
I've got a few questions. What's the calculated benefit in terms of what we are funding, and what's the return to the city, please?
Mr. Marmion.
It's difficult to calculate the direct financial benefit to the city. As the Deputy Mayor mentioned, there is likely to be a multiplier effect to investing $50,000 into a precinct that's already had a $20 million investment by state government. So very, very difficult to measure at this stage. But as I mentioned last week, I did go to an open day at the ARP, and there was a company there called Imdex, which has already signed an agreement. Imdex are an ASX-listed company, so if we can attract ASX-listed companies to the City of Wanneroo, that is a very, very good outcome in terms of investment attraction. So this is an investment into investment attraction to the city.
Thank you, Mr. Marmion, and Mr. CEO would like to add to that.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mr. Marmion might wish to elaborate, but I think number 2 of the recommendation has been constructed in a way that highlights the opportunity of forward positioning our own local business community to be ahead of the change in terms of robotics and automation, so that as businesses around Australia adjust to this technology, we're trying to position our businesses to be at the forefront through this partnership and investment within the Innovation Hub. Mr. Marmion may wish to add further to that.
Mr. Marmion, do you want to add to that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. CEO. I think the City of Wanneroo has many manufacturing businesses in Wangara and also in Neerabup, and some of those businesses have other locations in other parts of Perth. There's one particular business that's going to consolidate into Neerabup, adjacent to the ARP. So I guess the uplift in productivity from our businesses having access to this type of training and development in the AI robotics world is certainly going to benefit the productivity of our local businesses in the future.
Mr. CEO would like to speak.
Because this may be my last chance at the City of Wanneroo to speak on items. I think Mr. Marmion would also probably allude to the fact that whilst this is a sponsorship, it's also a purchase of training spaces. So not only are we providing a sponsorship to Core Innovation Hub, but part of the agreement we're negotiating provides tailored industry events and opportunities for training development for our own specific small businesses. So we are if council supports this, you are investing in the development and succession planning of your small businesses within the City of Wanneroo.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Do you have another question,
I've got a few more
Councillor
questions.
Nguyen?
Mayor, yeah. And I appreciate the significance of this site in terms of what it's doing within the city. And I wanted to sort of understand why it is necessary for the city to provide this funding when CORE is already engaged by Development WA to manage and operate this area and to try and activate it. So why are we still having to provide this financial support? So what difference does it make if we don't provide this? Is this essential for them to be activated in terms of that area?
Mr CEO will answer that.
Perhaps I can answer it in part and then Mr Marmin might wish to answer it in the second part. I guess the first reason is because Council resolved on the 7th of December to request that we do negotiate with Development WA to co-invest and collaborate in implementation and promoting the Australian Automotive and Robotics Precinct, so partly because Council asked us to, but Mr Marmin might wish to add the additional reason.
Mr Marmion.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's important for the city to guarantee for our local businesses that they can get involved, and without this sponsorship agreement, we don't really have any guarantee of that. Core Innovation Hub is looking nationally and internationally for firms to locate there. This is a good opportunity for us to ensure that our local businesses can get involved with the precinct and learn from those international businesses so that productivity will go up. It's attracting investment into the city. It's also signalling to the market that the City of Wanneroo is supportive of innovative businesses. And if we don't do it, make no mistake, we are, as a local government, in competition with other local governments. There'll be another local government that will step in and support the Core Innovation Hub as a foundation partner, so we'll miss out.
Thank you, Mr Marmion, and Mr CEO would like to speak to this again.
And just my last comment is we also are a land developer in Neerabup, so we are about to progress to develop our lots ready for market within Neerabup, and I can see a strong alliance between being a co-investor in this and the linkage that may have as we develop and sell our lots within Neerabup.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Do you have any more questions, Councillor
Just one more. Do we know what the financials of CORE is?
Mr Marmion.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mayor. I haven't investigated the financial status of Core Innovation, but given that they have been given a state government contract, I would assume that they're pretty solid. They also have operations in Sydney, up in Mount Newman as well, and they also operate out of St George's Terrace in Perth. So they're a very well-respected innovation company.
Thank you, Mr Marmion. Any more questions?
No, but I'd like to speak against, just based on sort of the answers I've received earlier, and I appreciate how important this site is for the city and to work with CORE to try and promote this area and to be part of that. CORE, at the moment, Innovation Hub, we don't understand the financial, but it's clear that they are in good standing. They don't need this money to activate this site, which is also already part of their responsibility as engaged by Development WA. You've got other ASX listed company, IMDEX, that is also are likely to take part in this precinct to promote it. This $60,000 could be spent elsewhere. I think the city can provide other supports to help promote this area without having to provide that sponsorship where that money is much needed elsewhere. There is no calculations in terms of the financial benefit of this $60,000 that is to be provided. That there is no, I guess there's an estimate that there will be some ratio that's been, offered, but I think if we were to spend this much money on sponsorship for 1 year, we need some more information, and that's the reason why I am not supporting this item. Thank you.
Do I have any speakers for this item? Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I fully support this. I actually think it's highly important that we do invest. As we've just heard, another local government could step in and we'd miss the opportunity. I think it's important we do promote the area to create opportunities and local jobs going forward. And on this occasion, I disagree with my fellow councillor Nguyen. I support this item. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Berry. Do I have any speakers against this item? If I have no speakers against this item, I would like to take the right of reply. CORE have good standing, and this agreement is for our local businesses to be developed within the automatic and robotic precinct, and it's for our land area that is being developed as part of this development. Woe betide us that for us not to have an agreement with them for our land and our businesses, for them to focus on development WA land only to the exclusion of our land sites for sale. So therefore, I ask you, fellow councillors, to support this. It is vitally important that we don't ignore this and that we have this sponsorship agreement for the future industry development of our land, of our local businesses, and for our people to have local jobs. And so, fellow councillors, I ask that you support this. Thank you. Councillors, please cast your vote. And there are 8 for and 1 against, and the councillor against is Councillor Van Nguyen. Okay, so now we go to item 9, motions on notice. We have MN 010923, City of Wanneroo transactional banking arrangements, which has been moved by Councillor Miles. Councillor Miles, do you have a seconder?
I think Councillor Nguyen's going to...
Councillor Nguyen is seconded. Councillor Miles, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The report is small but to the point, and I do want to thank Mr Greer and his team for putting some input into this. The report is about what we all see in our communities is the banks around the place closing down, taking away services from our community. We are always trying to do our best through our community and place team and through our planning teams, trying to build our neighbourhoods up, trying to build our district centres up and our neighbourhood centres up. And we're always fighting against those big monsters on the East Coast, in this case, the banks. What I've asked administration, whether it was possible, is whether or not our transactional banking, and transactional banking I mean whenever we do our warrant of payments, you see them in there, whenever we do our credit cards and the like for our corporate credit cards, all of that does go out for tender, and they do ask banks to tender for it. We're currently with the Commonwealth Bank, and we spend $300,000 to $400,000 a year, depending on what happens in that year. And as a business that is trying to deliver for and on behalf of our community, I believe we should use some of our buying power, just like we do when we say let's buy local. Whether we're going in for services out there through Mr Singh's team, the buy local part of that is always got a higher value to anybody outside of our district. And what I've asked administration in the recommendations is just to do the same thing and to actually point out to the banks, how about putting some of those banks back into our community? Part of the report actually indicates where the branches are. And I was quite surprised how little banking we have left in a city of over 220,000 people, 83,000 homes. And people from Yanchep have to now travel a great distance to obviously do banking. Most banks are moving towards Joondalup and they're closing fast. I think the report indicates Bank West, we actually do have 3 Bank West branches. So they could actually tender next time around and win our business because they're actually in the 3 locations that I think is the ideal locations for us. One down in the southern part, one in our town centre, and obviously one up in the Clarkson area. But I do think most of those Clarkson branches will move. I think, the ANZ moved not long ago. So all I'm asking for, councillors, is to use our purchasing and buying power to actually say next time we go for tender, to actually put in there that we want at least the 2 to 3 branches in our corridor. We are a very long council district, and by doing that, hopefully we can get a bit more services for and on behalf of our community, who we're always advocating for more and more services. So let's try and use our buying power on this occasion to actually make some of the bigger companies start to reflect on the fact that we do turn over $280 million a year through our transactions, and therefore it is worthwhile for them to have us as a banker. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Councillor Nguyen, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you. It is appalling to see the number of branches closing everywhere across Perth, especially in the city of Wanneroo, especially in my area where we've got Commonwealth Bank that's closed in Girraween, ANZ Bank that's closed in Kingsway, and I know that the people from Wheelchair for Kid having to travel from Wangara all the way up to Warwick to do their self banking as well. So people having to travel a long distance to bank, and not only that, having to queue for hours just to do their banking as well, because everyone is concentrated in one central location. And many of my local residents who don't speak English, or they're seniors, it's very hard for them to travel. They often prefer cash. They often prefer to see people at a branch level, and they have limited use of online facilities. So they need to actually see someone for assistance for banking. So absolutely support this motion that's been put forward by my colleague, and I think we do have that responsibility to also use our influence to make that difference for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nguyen. I just have a question. I understand that Bankwest, even though I was encouraged that they still had 3 branches within the city of Wanneroo, but I understand they don't do business banking. Would they be capable with their remit as a bank, because they're under the cover of CBA, to do business banking for the city of Wanneroo? Do you know that, Mr Greer?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have that answer at hand. I need to take that on notice. I note the request is to provide more information. That could be part of the information that's provided if Council did pass the recommendation.
Thank you very much. Do I have any speakers against this motion? If I haven't got any speakers against this motion, councillors, please cast your vote. So that is carried 5-4. The councillors that's voted against it was Councillor Parker, Councillor Berry, Councillor Herridge and myself, and the councillors supporting it were Councillor Treby, Councillor Miles, Councillor Smith, Councillor Coetzee and Councillor Nguyen. So thank you very much. We now have done all of our confidential items earlier. And we go to item 12, the date of the next meeting. The next council members' briefing session has been scheduled for 6 p.m. on Tuesday the 3rd of October to be held at Council Chambers, first floor, Civic Centre, 23 Dundebar Road, Wanneroo. And item 13 is closure, and I declare the meeting closed at 7:45 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
No, I've got audit still.